WWE presents its first ever WrestlePalooza premium live event this coming Saturday, September 20th from Indianapolis, Indiana. The event is going to be an historic one for World Wrestling Entertainment as it marks the beginning of their relationship with ESPN, moving all main roster PLEs over from Peacock. With that in mind, does WWE's creative team and Paul Triple H Levesque, WWE's chief content officer, have some major surprises in store in the form of major debuts? In this video, we're going to let you know 5 possible main roster debuts that could happen this weekend at WrestlePalooza. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. And this weekend, it is WWE WrestlePalooza, a historic event for World Wrestling Entertainment as they mark the beginning of their relationship with ESPN. All main roster PLEs have moved over from Peacock to ESPN, beginning with WrestlePalooza. And this event also is being hyped up and built up to be a future version of comparable to WrestleMania or SummerSlam. They want to build up WrestlePalooza as a very big annual event. So in addition to it being the first ESPN show, they're also trying to build up this IP to SummerSlam or WrestleMania status. And you do that by having stacked shows and memorable moments, certainly memorable moments in the form of debuts. Now, a reminder before we get into this countdown video, you can see right there, this video is brought to you in collaboration with our affiliate NordVPN. You can get yourself up to 73% off plus 3 months extra free. All you have to do is scan the QR code, click the link in the video description. It's going to be pinned in the comment section as well. If you get NordVPN and you're worried about these PLEs moving from Peacock over to ESPN, if you're able to afford it, well, if you get a NordVPN, what you can do is you can change your location to an international territory, such as here in the UK, where you can watch every single bit of WWE programming as part of your Netflix subscription. Over here in the UK, we watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, main roster PLEs, NXT PLEs. We get Saturday night's main event for free on YouTube, and we can watch archive content on Netflix as well, as all part of one subscription, as opposed to having to go to Peacock for NXT PLEs and then going over to ESPN for main roster PLEs and then having cable subscriptions for all of these different shows. All you have to do is have a Netflix subscription and get NordVPN. So if you haven't already, utilize that. It's another way to support the channel. All right, let's get into some major debuts that could happen this Saturday at WrestlePalooza from Indianapolis, Indiana. Let's begin with Private Party, the former AEW World Tag Team Champions. Just what's going on with Private Party? Well, the answer is we're not really too sure what is going on with them at the moment, because the last we heard is that their contracts were expiring with AEW very, very soon. Now, going back to reports around sort of June, July, a couple of months ago, it was reported that the former AEW World Tag Team Champions, Private Party, could be on their way out of All Elite Wrestling. It wouldn't be the first AEW wrestler or team to leave All Elite Wrestling and sign with WWE this year, would it? We've seen the likes of Ricky Starks, the Lucha Brothers, Miro, Malachi Black, Mariah May, all leave AEW and end up joining WWE. Now, as I mentioned, a couple of months ago in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was reported by the likes of Dave Meltzer and others that the contracts for the former AEW World Tag Team Champions were on the verge of expiring in the near future. Then we didn't have any details about the exact time frame on it, or whether or not AEW and Tony Khan were close to getting them to re-sign or what have you. We don't really know. Now, it looked like towards the end of sort of 2024-ish that AEW and Private Party were maybe, close to terms on a new contract or something like that, because they became the AEW World Tag Team Champions, but then they quickly dropped into the Hurt Syndicate at the beginning of the year, and we haven't seen them since. Now, on top of the reports that their contracts were due to expire sometime over the summer or the near future, that's what they said in June, WWE, according to Fightful Select, had shown preliminary interest in both members of the group. Now, Fightful said at the time they hadn't heard if Quen and Cassidy had been offered new contracts by AEW, but the point being is it's been very quiet, hasn't it? Now, we haven't heard one way or the other. We haven't heard whether they're going to be staying with All Elite Wrestling or whether they're going to be going to WWE. But we'll have to wait and see. There is tag team action at WrestlePalooza in the form of the Usos versus the Vision. Who's to say that maybe Private Party don't join the Vision as a brand new tag team? We'll have to wait and see. But Private Party, as I mentioned, when it comes to WWE looking to make a splash, sometimes they don't even need to be involved in a match or anything like that. Sometimes, like Triple H used to do with NXT back in the day, they can just show brand new signings sitting at ringside. So who's to say that Private Party aren't shown at ringside? Who's to say that in the pre-show there's not some big announcement made? WWE's made major announcements during the kickoff pre-shows prior to big PLEs. Look at WrestleMania weekend. They made the announcement that WWE had acquired AAA. That was revealed during a kickoff show. So the same thing could happen there when it pertains to Private Party, given the fact that they are debuting on ESPN and they maybe want to have a bit of a more sports-centric like feel. They could make the announcement of a major acquisition in the form of one of the hottest free agent tag teams ever in Private Party, something like that, the hyperbole that WWE can use. So I wouldn't be too shocked if we had some kind of announcement regarding that. But again, as of right now, we don't have any indication of whether they're actually free to join WWE, if their contracts have expired, when their contracts have expired with AEW, but certainly people are still talking about the possibility of them leaving AEW and joining WWE. What about Lance Anoa'i? This is a really interesting one because when it pertains to Lance Anoa'i, he signed with WWE in November of 2024. It was reported and then later confirmed by WWE that indeed he had joined over the summer of 2024, and many people assumed, right, given that he's joined over the summer of 2024, eventually he'll be factored into the Bloodline storyline, or he'll get involved with Solo Sikoa and his MFTs, and there's going to be some kind of involvement there. Now, since then, he's had a lot of injuries, and there was even reports of maybe he wasn't up to snuff in WWE, and maybe they would actually release him. Well, a bit of a recent update comes courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select. In a recent Fightful Select Q&A podcast, he reported that Anoa'i had what he described as a string of bad luck since signing with WWE in the summer of 2024. He said, quote, he's had a couple of setbacks. He got injured very early after getting signed last year and was planned to be sidelined pretty well into 2025, which is where we are right now. However, based on what we heard, he sustained another injury and after that was still injured this summer. Just very unfortunate luck that has prevented him from appearing. But this isn't necessarily something that is impossible for him making his debut at WrestlePalooza or something like that. The reason I say it's not completely impossible is because when it came to someone like Hikuleu, now known as Tala Tonga, in WWE, he didn't make any appearances in NXT prior to him making his debut for WWE on the main roster. In fact, he didn't make any kind of WWE appearance right up until a couple of weeks before he actually made his main roster debut at a PLE. Of course, he did a couple of dark appearances, but there was concerns about him saying, well, maybe he's not being used in NXT. He's just at the Performance Center. Maybe he's not good enough. Maybe he's going to be let go by WWE. Now he's on the main roster. Now, where Lance Anoa'i would factor into this? Well, of course, as you can see right there, he's wearing an Usos shirt. We have the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, reuniting to face off against the Vision. Who's to say that maybe the Usos have some backup in the form of Lance Anoa'i? Who's to say that maybe we can see Solo Sikoa and his MFTs get involved and maybe go up against the Usos, and Lance Anoa'i is someone that can get involved there. There is certainly many different situations that could maybe be involved there, so we'll have to wait and see, certainly, but I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility that Lance Anoa'i could make his WWE main roster debut, even though it does look unlikely due to his injury status. Now, the NXT North American Champion, Ethan Page. He is someone that you feel like is surely inevitable that Ethan Page is going to be called up to the main roster soon. Now, I know what you'll say, Owen, but isn't he scheduled for the upcoming No Mercy PLE, which is taking place 7 days later on September 27th? Yes, he is. He's defending the NXT North American Championship against Tavon Heights. But who's to say that he doesn't make his main roster debut at WrestlePalooza and then he has his NXT Swan Song 1 week later? That's entirely possible. Just because he's the North American Champion does not rule out a main roster call-up. There have been plenty of NXT superstars across its history that have been called up to the main roster while holding gold. So the fact that Ethan Page is the current champion in NXT really means next to nothing. And frankly, he's done nearly all there is to do in NXT. He's one of the names that's come over from AEW to NXT and has really elevated himself into a top-tier talent on the NXT roster. He won the NXT Championship. He's won the NXT North American Championship. He's had a bit of an alliance with Chelsea Green, which is a bit of main roster crossover, and there had been reports that Chelsea Green and others were pushing for that combination to be brought to the main roster. But several months ago, there were reports and rumors suggesting that Ethan Page not only was being considered for a main roster call-up, but in addition to that, there was rumors that he could possibly be added to the faction The Vision on WWE Monday Night Raw. And the reason why is because you do need that kind of guy that can take pinfalls, can talk, but can also be someone that can take a lot of bumps for the faction. Because you look at the setup of The Vision right now, of course you've got Paul Heyman, the Oracle. He's a manager. He's not going to take a ton of bumps. Yes, he got choked up by Roman Reigns, but he's not going to take loads and loads of bumps. You've got Seth Rollins. He's the World Heavyweight Champion. He's certainly not going to get his comeuppance all the time. You've got Big Bronson Reed, who's sort of the monster of the group, so he's not going to take pinfalls that much. You've got Bron Breakker as being groomed as the next big thing, and he's going to be the breakout star of the faction, and he's going to be pushed as one of the faces of the company in the next 5 to 10 years. So Bron Breakker's going to be very, very heavily protected throughout all of this storyline. So you do need that person who's going to eat pinfalls, who's going to take bumps, who's going to get his comeuppance. And Ethan Page can fall into that category perfectly. He's in his mid-30s. He's got a ton of experience from his time on the Indies as well as TNA and then AEW, and now his run in WWE NXT. Shawn Michaels is clearly a huge fan. He's won 2 of the top major titles that NXT has to offer, and he's ready to go. He's the complete package, isn't he? So Ethan Page going to the main roster, whether it is with the Vision and again, what match he could make his debut in. Could it be in the tag team match involving the Vision's Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker against the Usos? Yes. Could it be actually in the match involving Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch against CM Punk and AJ Lee? Because kind of lost in all of the Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch stuff is that Seth Rollins is still the leader of the Vision, and it looks like Becky Lynch is a member of that faction. So who's to say that the Vision's Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, maybe they try and get involved, but they can't, and it leads to Ethan Page maybe costing CM Punk the match and allowing Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch to pick up the victory over the husband and wife tag team of Punk and AJ. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of the North American champion making his debut at this upcoming PLE. What about Danhausen? Now, this one does seem pretty unlikely, doesn't it? We know Danhausen probably, the moment he is able to, is probably likely going to be signed by WWE at this point. Danhausen hasn't been seen since last year's Ring of Honor Final Battle pay-per-view, and before that, he wasn't seen in quite some time after. When he came out at Ring of Honor's Final Battle event last year at Hammerstein Ballroom, everyone rejoiced. Finally, Danhausen is being used again by AEW/ROH and being used again by Tony Khan. After that, radio silent. We hadn't heard from him since. Now, he has expressed his desire to leave AEW. He had his contract was set to expire in this summer. It was set to expire in July of 2025, and he had actually requested to AEW, don't add injury time onto my contract. I know there is injury time you could tack on, but I don't want you to. I want to leave. You're not using me, so I might as well just go when my contract expires. But AEW did decide to exercise a clause to add injury time onto his contract. It's because he torn his pectoral muscle in 2023. And it was expected that now his AEW contract has been extended well into 2026 due to this injury time. So it looks like, again, it's going to be very, very unlikely that Danhausen could appear at WrestlePalooza. But you never know. We've heard situations in the past where the likes of Rey Fenix, Miro, and others did have injury time added on to their AEW contracts, but they actually did negotiate an early release from their contracts with AEW that also included no non-compete clause as well. There was some expectation that maybe the likes of Rey Fenix and the likes of Miro, after having been released from their contracts early, they'd be not able to work for WWE for an extended period. That wasn't the case. They're both already in WWE. So if Danhausen does get released from his contract early, one would think there probably isn't going to be any non-compete clause because AEW doesn't tend to really do them all that much. So unless something changes in the next few days, this one does appear to be unlikely. But you feel like at some point, Danhausen is going to land in WWE. Whether that's on the main roster, whether that's in NXT, we'll just have to find out in the future. But he is a merchandising dream, isn't he, for WWE? Whether it's face paint, whether it's masks, catchphrases, action figures, you name it, it just is all there for WWE, and they're certainly very good at merchandising their talent. And of course, he does have strong connections in WWE, whether it is CM Punk, whether it's Cody Rhodes. Of course, we know Danhausen's relationship with Punk. So who's to say that he doesn't appear on the main roster with CM Punk? Or maybe he goes to NXT and gets over there first. But Danhausen at WrestlePalooza, anything's possible, but it does feel quite unlikely. And finally, on the countdown list, I'm splitting hairs on this one, but could we see the WWE debut of Killer Kross? Not Karrion Kross, Killer Kross. There is still so much debate and still so much discussion about, is Karrion Kross really gone from WWE? Has he and Scarlett, are they really free agents? Of course, their contracts expired in August. There have been so much speculation that it was all an elaborate work, and Kross had this social media groundswell of support, and they were chanting his name at television, and he was still being used regularly on WWE TV. In his final 2 PLE matches, he competed at Night Champions against Sami Zayn. He competed at SummerSlam against Sami Zayn, and a lot of people said, well, if his contract was really expiring, why would they have him featured in big moments? Like, why would they give TV time to him at events like SummerSlam? That doesn't really make a lot of sense. He's continued to insist, this is not a work. They did offer me a contract. They gave me an offer that I was confused by. They told me I had 24 hours to sign it. If I didn't, it was rescinded. It was then rescinded. I never heard anything back, and my contract has expired. He's insisted, I'm not working anyone. I'm not working anyone. Now, since then, we have seen Scarlett and Kross appear at a GCW event. GCW is somewhat loosely affiliated, though, with WWE. They held WWE ID championship tournaments. Several WWE superstars have participated in GCW's Bloodsport events, which are Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, but they're hosted under the GCW banner. So it's not as if there isn't an affiliation there. It still is really up in the air. As I've said before, until Killer Kross ends up in AEW or something like that, that's when you go, oh wow, this really isn't a work. It still feels like an elaborate work, and we'll have to wait and see how it does play out. Maybe the long term here is to have him and Scarlett return, but not as Karrion Kross, as something different, as something more popular, as Killer Kross. Maybe it's going to be a rebirth of such, therefore it's going to be the debut. Maybe it is going to be the debut of Killer Kross in WWE as opposed to Karrion Kross. It feels like, again, when it comes to ESPN and this being a big show that WWE wants to build to the level of WrestleMania or Royal Rumble or SummerSlam, there would have to be viral moments. And WWE really cares about viral moments and people talking on social media coming out of these shows. Certainly, whilst maybe the support for Karrion Kross, Killer Kross, has died down in terms of the live crowd at WWE events. We're not hearing "we want Kross" as much, are we, in terms of fans chanting it? Certainly the social media online chatter is still there. Not to the extent that it was maybe a month or so ago, but it is still certainly there. And if Killer Kross showed up and got involved in one of the big matches, you can absolutely believe that social media would be abuzz and would be talking about it, and it would be a moment that continues to get replayed over and over, which is what WWE wants. So if they want that viral moment, maybe they could get it in the form of a Killer Kross debut in WWE. So there you go, guys. There are 5 potential major debuts that could happen this weekend at WWE WrestlePalooza. What are your thoughts? Which ones are more likely than the others? Have I missed any names off that list? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, button right-hand corner. A reminder, once again, you can get NordVPN, get up to 73% off plus 3 months extra. All you have to do, scan that QR code. You can use our link. It's in the video description below. It'll also be pinned in the comment section. And you can watch WrestlePalooza as part of your Netflix subscription, in addition to pretty much everything else WWE on Netflix. All you got to do is change your location to over here in the UK or other international territories where WWE airs as part of the Netflix subscription. Really appreciate everyone for tuning in, as always, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.